If the creeper didn't already exist, modern Mojang wouldn't even consider adding it to the game. Minecraft has lost its identity, what made it truly special. And it's not because they've kept updating the game. In fact, it was entirely possible for them to continue adding features to the game and still keep its original charm. What the issue is, as time has gone on, Mojang has changed paths on how they approach adding new content and the type of content they add, in a way that has slowly but drastically made them lose sight of what made the game unique in the first place. I brought up the Creeper just before, so let's take a look at it. If you didn't know, the Creeper was created by accident. Notch was trying to code the pig model, but he accidentally messed up the dimensions, swapping the length and height, creating the now distinct phallic silhouette of the Creeper. He liked it so much that he decided to use the shape, somehow coming up with the concept of them sneaking up to the player and exploding, bringing the Creeper into existence. Back during the early stages of the game, it seems like it was updated on the premise of, this idea seems cool, let's add it. The Ghast, Enderman, Nether, and End all seem to follow this line of thinking. A cool idea was conceptualized and implemented. If it worked, it made it into the game, which is a starkly different vibe to how the game gets updated now. New updates seem to follow the line of thinking, what can we add that will have the most gameplay benefit without drastically modifying the base experience? Which is fine, and I can see why they would approach the game this way, but it leads to changes that withdraw from the game's original appeal. The reason why I don't think the Creeper would get added to the game now, if it didn't already exist, is because modern Mojang would deem it too extreme. The fact that it is a common spawn, is hard to hear, and can be detrimental to the player, all while not having a useful enough drop to warrant its capabilities, would make them turn the concept down. A modern Creeper would probably only spawn in a specific biome under specific circumstances, wouldn't be as brutal to the player, and would drop something that has a hyper-specific use only applicable to one circumstance. Look no further than the Sniffer to see this type of addition in play. The eggs only findable inside suspicious sand that spawns in warm ocean ruins, and once hatched, spawn a mob that gives you access to 2 pointless plants that work only as decorations. I'd guess 95% of players won't ever interact with the Sniffer. It's too much of a hassle to get for a payoff that isn't worth the effort. Which is a shame, because the concept of the Sniffer was great. The idea of a prehistoric mob being able to locate ancient seeds is cool. Sadly, Mojang was too scared to make the mob stand out too much, too scared to make these seeds actually useful. After all, they wouldn't want to add anything that would detract from the base experience too much. Mojang is scared to update the game in a way that'll have huge implications to its style, but that reservation has caused it to slowly change into something different anyway, and change in a way that the players are seemingly getting sick of. Mojang wants the game to still feel like Minecraft, but Minecraft without experimentation stops feeling like Minecraft eventually, regardless. Mobs are only a part of the issue though. The game's aesthetic has veered away from what it used to be as well. Putting a picture of old Minecraft and new Minecraft side by side, they both read as Minecraft. But old Minecraft looks how and I think most people, visualize Minecraft. It exudes the game's fundamental aesthetic. New Minecraft still is very obviously Minecraft, but it's lacking a quality that the old game had. An obvious one is saturation. Older Minecraft used to be extremely saturated. I personally love that look, though I could see a lot of people getting put off by it. What I truly think is the biggest change though, is how the game approaches decorative blocks. Old Minecraft rarely expanded on the variety of block designs, instead opting to increase the pool of color varieties the player has. This causes a visual consistency. Regardless of the color, a wool block looks like a wool block. There was also a smaller pool of blocks that weren't one-to-one block size. You had stairs, slabs, fences, and I suppose doors and pressure plates that weren't the size of a full block, and that was essentially it. These additional blocks had a distinct silhouette with a limited placeability, meaning they would always stand out amidst a build. The limited designs, along with the smaller pool of block variety, made earlier builds in Minecraft have a consistency to them. Mojang has since shifted in how they approach decorative blocks. Opposed to having an expanded array of colours, they instead have a larger variety of block types. Just look at the sheer volume of stone blocks you can create in the game. These are all great additions, and I'm not against them in theory, but due to the excess detail, the game's core aesthetic gets diluted, slowly losing its charm. There was a point in time when Minecraft's textures were iconic because of how limited the texture pool was. Since they started increasing the degree of available textures, that iconography has faded. Today, there's not a single new texture block that is as iconic as grass or cobblestone. Increasing the block variety and removing limitations on how certain blocks can be placed has also had a negative side effect of whittling away Minecraft's original visual appeal. The level of detail you can achieve in a build now makes the game not read as Minecraft anymore, at least not in the same way. The original thick, blocky look of older builds is lost in modern creations. And I'm not saying these new block types and removal of placement limitations is a bad thing. In fact, I think in theory, it's a good choice and I can see why they've done it. I just think that as the game has gotten bigger and more content has been added, this expansion has negatively impacted the aesthetic. A great example of how Minecraft could have continued adding new features all while keeping its unique appeal is the Better Than Adventure mod, a mod for Minecraft Beta 1.7.3 that works as a what-if update that adds a plethora of new features while still keeping that authentic Minecraft feel. This is mainly apparent in the decorative blocks, adding a tree of every colour, something that players have been asking for since the beta, and Mojang seems very reluctant to do, only adding one new tree type per year almost, and also increasing the variety of stone types without cluttering the visual style, simply changing the default stone texture to keep visual consistency. Additions like these is what retains that original Minecraft aesthetic. Players have more creative options that, once utilized, still look fundamentally Minecraft. There's a lot more this mod adds, and I genuinely recommend you give it a go, especially if you aren't too happy with the current state of the game. Now, when it comes to how Mojang should approach mob additions, there's a really great Twitter artist called Nuntoon that I think is able to create unique and interesting mobs that I could genuinely see appearing in earlier versions of the game. Their Grib concept is probably my favorite. Not only does it look super unique, but its ability, running up to the player and snatching whatever item they're holding at the time to put in its face, is harmless fun. It's the type of thing I would expect to see in earlier versions of the game. It matches the same kind of energy as the Enderman, which is something recent mobs have been lacking. Mojang should be focusing on adding weird and wacky mobs, instead of making players vote on what real-life animal they want to spawn in on one section of their world that only exists to give them a feature they've been begging for years. Even with all my critiques, that's not to say every recent update has been horrible. The Caves and Cliffs update brought some much needed modifications to cave generation that blows anything previously out of the water. And the Nether update added a multitude of features to the once sparse dimension that it desperately needed. In fact, the Nether update itself, I think, is one of the most solid updates they've done, and is one of the few recent updates that is in line with Minecraft's original identity. The new mobs, like the Strider, are weird and unique, and the new biomes are visually engaging without withdrawing from the Nether's atmosphere. These updates show that Mojang is perfectly capable of creating content that match Minecraft's original appeal, but they just aren't at the moment. And truth be told, people give Mojang a lot of flack for how they handle updates, and sometimes it's valid, but I think Mojang does actually want to add things that players have been asking for, things that would have kept the game's identity, but have been hitting a roadblock that is stunting them. That roadblock being Microsoft. now that they own the game, I'm sure they're very strict on what gets added, and probably are stopping the developers from changing things too much. And I'm sure they request additions that Mojang might be aware are detracting from the experience but can't push back on. Part of the reason I think the Nether update was so good is because I think Microsoft was more lenient with the dimension, seeing as it doesn't carry the same iconography like the overworld, so Mojang was able to really flex their creative juices and revamp the dimension in a whole bunch of unique ways that they might not be able to otherwise if they were updating the overworld. It might seem like I hate the current direction of the game, but I really don't. I've been on and off playing Minecraft for 13 years. I just miss how it used to be, how it used to look and feel. Luckily for me, Mojang is one of the few developers that easily allow you to play any early version of their game. So if I ever really am missing that old vibe, I can just re-download it and immerse myself in that experience. And thanks to the wonderful modding community, I can also change that experience to add things if I ever get bored. Minecraft won't ever be exactly what it was, but it still has a chance to become something new that has an appeal just as enticing as it used to. It just depends on if Mojang can find its footing and start engaging with the community's critiques more willingly.